We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to the Sox Machine podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's Sunday night, July 21st, 2024, as we bring you a new episode. There's a lot going on in the news, especially for those that live in America, so if you are looking for a distraction from all that, we will do our best to provide that by talking about the White Sox. Wait, maybe we should podcast about something else. Kidding aside, we've got trade rumors to discuss. One rumor that I think is very far-fetched, one rumor we've heard is on the nose, and could be the White Sox first trade domino to fall. Plus, it was Hall of Fame weekend in Cooperstown as Todd Helton, Adrian Beltre, and Joe Mauer were inducted along with manager Jim Leyland. We revisit how much they beat up on the White Sox in their careers and take a look around Major League Baseball. But first, I literally just got back from the O'Hare Airport as we were in Kansas City this weekend for our annual road trip along with our friends from the 108. Joining me is the managing editor of SoxMachine.com. It's Jim Margulis. And Jim, it was great to see you this weekend in Kansas City. What a blast we had.
It was great seeing you. It was great seeing everybody. For how far away it is from Chicago, is this the farthest, aside from San Diego, is this the farthest road trip we've had, distance-wise?
If you're going by car, I would have to look at Google Maps because Minneapolis is farther away from Chicago than people think. At least by car. But it takes 7 hours, I think, either way.
Okay, because Kansas City is 8. So
okay.
So yeah, Kansas City might be the farthest. So the turnout we had was awesome. The Negro Leagues Museum tour went off without a hitch. Everybody, when you have a call for everybody to show up in the morning on a Saturday when they're traveling and on vacation, never quite know how it'll go. But everybody showed up. Aside from people with travel problems, which is understandable. The big crowd strike snafu that happened and caused some problems for everybody who wasn't flying on Southwest. Thank goodness Southwest has the software they haven't updated since 1994. They got in trouble 2 years ago, but they came out clean this weekend. So that was comforting for us Southwest flyers. But yeah, you did a great job with the space and the bus ride. Scott Carroll showed up.
Yeah.
Friend of the podcast, official friend of the show, meeting up in person to shake hands and kiss babies. So yeah, great time all around. Everything except for the baseball. But everything we could control, I think went off pretty well and seemed like people were happy. And I was happy that people were happy.
Yeah, thank you to International Tap House in the Crossroads District. Like, I get why. So the Crossroads District in Kansas City, when Kansas City had that big stadium vote, that's where the Royals want to build their new stadium. And I get it. I get why they want to build a stadium in that district of Kansas City. It's close to downtown. You have some great bars there. but there's a lot of speculation that they would have to tear down those bars to build this new entertainment district. I'm not exactly in favor of that because there's some great restaurants and bars in that area, but huge shout out to the International Tap House. They were absolutely great to us. So if you are ever in Kansas City, go visit them. Dwayne, our bus driver, he was awesome. Made it really easy. Dropped us right off at the stadium and was able to pick us up right there. So that was fantastic. You mentioned the Negro League Museum. That's a must. If you are ever going to Kansas City to either visit Kauffman Stadium because it's a stadium that you need to check off on the list, or you just want to watch the White Sox on the road, you have to make a stop at the museum. That was probably the highlight of the trip. That was my first time there, and all the history, and especially how involved Chicago is in that history of the launching of the Negro Leagues and over the years, the decades, and the ex-White Sox players that are featured inside that museum. You have to go. If you haven't been, maybe just go to Kansas City just for that museum tour. I highly recommend it. It was absolutely awesome. The weather somewhat cooperated for us. It didn't rain on us at Kauffman Stadium. And Kauffman Stadium is a very nice stadium. There are some quirks that, again, I understand why they want a new stadium, that a new stadium would fix. But overall, the Royals fans were very kind. The food, surprisingly good at Kauffman Stadium. Overall, I thought it was a great trip. It might have been one of our best road trips that we've had so far, Jim.
Yeah, and From the 108 brought the party and the festivities, the temporary tattoos, which were the second easiest way to find out if somebody's riding the bus besides the bracelets. So that was great. So yeah, another successful partnership, I would say. And yeah, Kauffman, it was my first time there since they finished the renovations, with the Hall of Fame and left. Hall of Fame is cool. It's a really nice display for a team that's only been around since I'm trying to think how many rounds, third round of expansion to go, late 60s. So, considering that the White Sox have twice as much history as the Royals do, I was walking through it and looking at the exhibits and making me think like, oh, imagine what the White Sox can do with a space like this, especially since their history is so obscure because they haven't really accomplished much in the national baseball view aside from like mostly things that are regrettable, like the Black Sox scandal and disco demolition and wearing shorts and everything like that. Like the parts of the White Sox history worth celebrating are things White Sox fans know, or the White Sox fans have to keep it alive because nobody else is going to tell the story for them. So if the White Sox go somewhere or wherever they go, like it'd be cool if they set aside a space like that where they can tell the history of the team better, because I think the Royals did a good job with that. I think my only complaint with Kauffman is that like the beer selection's a little bit Boulevard heavy. If you're looking for something that's not macro brew, it's mostly Boulevard, and they're okay, but I think there are better Kansas City breweries out there.
I think they make good beer, but I understand like more variety.
I think they're okay. Like some I like, some I don't. But like I went to KC Beer Company on Friday because I didn't go to Friday's game because my wife has family in the area, so I saw some of them and had a nice dinner. But then I went to KC Beer Company afterwards, and German styles. I think that's my favorite. Yeah,
the Heffenweisen from KC Beer. That's what I was drinking at the pregame party. After all this, if we haven't overwhelmed you with FOMO, for those that are listening to this that didn't go to Kansas City with us, we have some good news. We've already booked our road trip for the 2025 season because the 2025 schedule came out. I was a bit surprised that they did it again during the All-Star break. Maybe that's the new thing now that we have to look forward to, is that the following schedule of next season will be released during the All-Star break. I wish, if MLB is going to be that consistent, that makes planning for us, especially on the content side and event side, Jim, very useful and helpful, because I could say with almost a year in advance from July 18th to the 20th in 2025, our road trip is going to be in Pittsburgh. So we're going to be visiting PNC Park. If you haven't been, man, this is the road trip you want to join, because PNC Park is a fantastic baseball stadium Pittsburgh, I feel, is an underrated weekend trip. There's a lot to do over a weekend. I wouldn't want to stay in Pittsburgh for an entire week, but there's a lot to do over the weekend. It's going to be a blast. We always have fun. So again, if you're not overwhelmed with the FOMO of missing out on the Kansas City road trip, we are giving you almost a year in advance. Join us in Pittsburgh, July 18th through the 20th. And on the podcast page on SoxMachine.com, I have the interest form embedded into the post. So you could just give us your email and we will stay in touch with you with our future plans.
Reschedule your wedding, reschedule other people's weddings, and to let people in the process. Like you usually, we in the 108 have a list of cities that we're interested in traveling to and feel like they could make good meetup spots based on our knowledge, based on our interest, based on our previous experiences. And I think the two front runners were Colorado and Pittsburgh this year, and just happened to be that Colorado is on 4th of July weekend, which is maybe makes it easier for some people. I know that makes it more expensive and tougher for others. So it just complicates matters. And so for that reason, Colorado might have to wait another 2 years, but that is on our list as well. I saw a couple of suggestions asking, what about Coors Field? And we'd like to. We have that on the list, and perhaps it's almost like Olympic years at this point. It's like cities in the running for 2026. They can all bid for us. Maybe we can start a convoluted bidding process in order to have finalist cities that compete for our love.
Yeah, that would be great, actually. That would make it helpful for me. We could run RFPs. Who wants us? But yeah, can't wait for Pittsburgh next year. We look forward to you guys joining us. All right, unfortunately, let's talk about the worst thing that happened over this weekend. That was the actual baseball games the Chicago White Sox played, as they get swept by the Kansas City Royals in a very lifeless, if that's fair to say, Jim, series sweep. The Royals won Game 1 7-1. Then they won Game 2 6-1. And then they won Game 3 4-1. The White Sox scored only one run in each game. They were outscored 17-3 in the 3-game sweep. At least in the third game, it was close into the 8th inning when the Royals scored 3 runs off John Brabia to run away from the White Sox and complete the sweep. But the offense is lifeless again. And Jonathan Cannon really struggled at the beginning part of the game where he allowed 3 runs in the first inning. I think at one point we counted he allowed 5 straight hits, which is going to complicate matters. But after he got through the first 2 innings, even though the White Sox were down 4-0, Jonathan Cannon was able to stabilize and finish strong in that start. So at least there's something good to take away. There's not much good to take away from the first game of that series for the White Sox on the pitching front. Chris Flexen's like every other inning right now. I'll allow a run, scoreless inning. Many runs allowed, scoreless inning. At least he's consistent.
Pedro Grifol did him no favors either in that one.
Grifol's
the bizarre
not doing
decision to
favor, right?
Well, but I mean, like the bizarre decision to punt a game, the first game out of the All-Star break to save the bullpen.
I know. We have to talk about Grifol. We have to talk about Pedro Grifol because the White Sox are 27-74 now. They have lost 7 straight games. In the month of July, they're 3-12. And this is what he had to say post-game that caught my attention on just the overall status of things of where the White Sox are.
I'm a competitor at the end of the day, and I want to win baseball games, right? And that's the most important. That's the most important thing at the major league level. But there's a process to this thing, that we're going through right now. It hurts. It's painful as shit. I can't lie. I mean, it's painful. But my faith is in the good Lord up there, man. That's what my faith is. There's a reason I'm going through this. There's a reason we're going through this as an organization. There's a reason these young kids are here, with this opportunity to develop and perform. I was over there at the same time when we were going through it over there, and look where they're at now. This thing can happen really, really quick. This turnaround can happen really quick, especially when we're seeing what we're seeing on a daily basis, which is really good starting pitching. So, and we drafted the kid, in the fifth pick, another pitcher, and I mean, there's, we had a couple guys throw, 4 or 5 no-hit innings down there last night in Double-A. I mean, there's some really good things happening here, but I can't neglect the fact that this is painful. But my faith is in the good Lord. I'm grounded with my faith, and I know that there's something special on the other side of it.
I just don't know anymore. Like, I don't know when we keep getting asked this question when Pedro Grifol is going to be let go. And it's just another point during his tenure with the White Sox, Jim, where they just seem lifeless. Like, this is coming after the All-Star break. You immediately get swept. The games are not really that close except for the third game, but that ends up being a laugher at the end. You're outscored 17-3. I know Chris Getz is a busy man, Jim. And I know that probably this decision ultimately falls to Jerry Reinsdorf. But come on, like, how much longer are the White Sox going to continue having Pedro Grifol managing this team?
Well, one thing I'm keeping an eye on is when you look at the all-time worst records for a White Sox manager, Grifol has the worst winning percentage by far of any White Sox manager with any meaningful amount of games. However, he is challenging the all-time worst winning percentage for any manager in White Sox history. So Ed Walsh, 1924, just a handful of games, or 3 games, and then Les Moss in 1968. Each have a winning percentage of .333. Ed Walsh went 1-2. Les Moss went 12-24. And that's a case of, Walsh was in a mid-season managerial swap because I think Johnny Evers at that point had health problems. And so Charles Comiskey had to adjust on the fly and tried Walsh and didn't like it. So then I think he pivoted to Eddie Collins, I believe. Then Les Moss was there, I think, when that year the pitcher team was going to the toilet and just finished out the year. But Grifol right now with this loss, he was at .336. Now he's down to .335. His winning percentage actually 30.3346. So it rounds up to .335, but now it's .334. So he is on pace to get slip by Walsh and Moss for the all-time worst winning percentage of White Sox history, no matter what. So that's what I'm kind of watching. Now I kind of want to see him do it. Now I'm a little bit invested in. It's nice when you don't have to use the qualifiers like worst winning percentage for any manager who managed a full season. When you have to tack on words like this, would just be nice and simple. Worst winning percentage ever in White Sox history. So if it saves me words and inelegant sentences, then I think I'm for that.
I'm curious for managers that have managed at least 250 games in Major League Baseball history, where Pedro Grifol ranks on that list. I'm curious about that because if he is the worst, then the White Sox have given him like way too much rope to continue managing. Like they've given him more rope than other teams would have allowed at this stage.
Yeah, I'm looking to see. I have to see if there's a way to look that up. So I was looking up Les Moss. He was actually the one of 3 managers that year. Eddie Stanky and Al Lopez were the others.
Because the White Sox on the road this year are 10-40 on the road. They would have to win the remaining 31 road games in a row to have a winning record on the road. That's not happening. And what's just baffling, and I know this is a ongoing conversation within the Sox Machine comments, like this team performance-wise shouldn't be this far off track from last year, Jim, where they went 61 and 101. Like Drew Thorpe pitches 6 scoreless innings again. And Drew Thorpe is in a groove. We'll talk about Thorpe and brag about him in a moment. The White Sox are getting quality starting pitching from Drew Thorpe. You're going to have Erick Fedde and Garrett Crocket pitching this upcoming series against the Texas Rangers. Even though Jonathan Cannon stumbled, he pitched scoreless innings after the first 2 innings of that game and was able to extend as far as how much work that he took and how many innings he took in game 2. You're getting quality starting pitching, but on the position player front, on the offensive front, everything that Pedro Grifol has said, with the day that he's been hired, The White Sox are not doing any of those things. Any of those things. They just continue hitting for singles. And it's not working. Like, it's very frustrating to watch. And again, it was the worst part of our road trip weekend was actually having to watch the Chicago White Sox play baseball.
Okay, so I found on Baseball Reference the list of managers, and they have two leaderboards, one with managers with at least 315 games, which is basically 2 seasons, depending on, which timeline you're on, 162, 154, etc. And worst winning percentage of that is .301. Doc Prothero, 1939 through 1941. So that's going to be out of reach for Grifol, assuming he doesn't get a third year. That was with the Philadelphia Phillies. The only other one worse in terms of out of Grifol's reach is John McCloskey. And that was 1895, 1908. That's when he managed, let's see the name, Louisville Colonels and the St. Louis Cardinals. Those are the only 2 managers who are out of reach for Grifol. The other one is Fred Tenney, who had a .334 winning percentage. That was Boston Nationals, Boston Doves, before they were the Boston Braves. So 4 years with the Boston Braves, or the predecessors to them. So those are the historic figures that Grifol is chasing. And right now Grifol is at 263 games. If he manages the rest of the season, he'll reach that 315. So again, now I'm invested in him staying the rest of the year and seeing if he can get himself on this leaderboard. Interesting to see Mark Kotsay also on there, 351. That's 6th worst overall, but obviously he's been dealt an intentionally bad hand.
So Pedro Grifol, as we record this, is still the manager of the Chicago White Sox, and we'll see if he's still the manager of the White Sox after the trade deadline. I really just, after the deadline, what work Chris Getz is able to do, again, I just don't think there's much use of Pedro Grifol other than chasing worst manager ever records in Major League Baseball, which I'm sure that's what Pedro Grifol wants to accomplish, and I'm sure that's what the White Sox want him to accomplish. But at least something positive on the field for the White Sox again. Drew Thorpe, 6 scoreless innings for the Chicago White Sox, Jim. That's 5 consecutive starts for Thorpe of pitching at least 6 innings and not allowing more than 2 earned runs. He's in a groove right now. And even when the White Sox trade Erick Fedde, and if they are able to find a good return for Garrett Crocket, I guess Drew Thorpe becomes the best White Sox starting pitcher left over. And right now, I'm not saying he's pitching like an ace, but he is providing consistency that is rare to see from a rookie.
It feels tenuous when he's doing it. It's like when you see the lack of real sizzling fastball, and the slider doesn't look all that dynamic, and the cutter, sometimes you can't tell it apart from the slider, and not quite sure how he's doing it. But basically, it seems like whenever he can get to his changeup, or whenever he can get to a position where he's throwing his changeup more than any other pitch, then he's basically golden. That's kind of my takeaway watching Thorpe right now. And we kind of knew that, I think, from the first couple starts, because his first one, he was able to get to the changeup and had success. Second one, not able to set up counts to his liking, and hitters were able to target it or lay off it, and he wasn't locating it, so he had to come back with the fastball, and they beat him up a little bit and made everybody a little bit afraid that the White Sox did the wrong thing by promoting him directly from Birmingham. But since then, he's had some I would say not even ups and downs, just he's been able to simplify it, and everything else besides the changeup seems like it's just good enough. Whether it's velocity, whether it's sharpness of the slider or cutter, the bite of the cutter, or whether it's being able to hit 93, 94 once in a while. Like, he's got just enough going on with with that and the command that when he does it start after start after start, basically set aside what you're seeing or what the traditional metrics are for success or dominance, and you think like, okay, this guy can do it. And it's fun, that adds a neat little wrinkle to baseball when you're watching it. Like, normally guys like Thorpe who have like a killer changeup, I'm thinking like Devin Williams, and somebody who can throw the changeup that often, they work usually for 1 inning, 2 innings. Just the one dominant pitch, and everything else is more or less shelved because of how good that pitch is, and hitters don't see it twice. But Thorpe is now going through the lineup 3 times, and he's able to modify his attack a little bit to set up a plan. Like he's scripting the first 15 plays almost like in a in a football sense, and he's able to execute those 15 plays. And then all of a sudden, in this case, he was a little bit slider heavy early, and then all of a sudden the changeups came. And because he had planted the slider in the mind and the fastball had enough pop on it that the changeup could play and changeup could do its damage. So it's fun to see him this early in his career be able to manipulate counts and force hitters on the defensive, despite the lack of, he's having like a Dylan Cease run without Dylan Cease velocity. And that's kind of neat to see.
Those are the positives right now, is the starting pitching front. Hitting front, dude, everyone was awful. Everyone, well, maybe except for Tommy Pham. Tommy, you can step aside. Everyone was awful, but it was cool to see the debut of Brooks Baldwin, and it was cool to see him have his first career hit in his first at bat. But he went 1 for 10 for the series, Jim, and then immediately, Pedro Grifol puts Baldwin in the 6th spot in the lineup. And I'm not here to be like, all right, let's talk about lineup construction again. But I don't understand like why Pedro decided that, you know what, we got to challenge Brooks. And I'm going to put him in the 6th spot. And there was multiple times where the game was on the line, runners in scoring position. And I just felt like that was unnecessary for Pedro to do. But what did you make of the opening weekend for Brooks Baldwin? You have a feature coming out about Brooks Baldwin on SoxMachine.com, Jim. You've seen a lot of Brooks Baldwin. Is this the type of player that we're going to be seeing here for the White Sox? Is someone that's very aggressive early in the count? And we may not see a lot of power, but the objective is at least getting the ball in play.
It's a product of like the White Sox offense and the way that they struggle to hit for power, extra base hits, whether it's not even homers, like doubles are hard to come by, to where the 6th spot's almost like a dangerous place in the lineup to be if you're a hitter of, questionable quality, which I think it's fair to call Baldwin right now because he's a rookie. Because when they're having a good inning, it's single, walk, hit by pitch, single. It's one base at a time. Maybe that single scores a runner. Maybe a single is like an infield single that loads the bases. But it's a matter of stringing together 90 feet, 90 feet, 90 feet around outs. Sometimes these sequences happen when there's already 2 outs. They don't get the leadoff guy on. So there's no instant offense. So invariably, the offense keeps dragging along until it finds the weak link. And we've seen that, with Larry Garcia, how the game kept picking on him a couple years ago. We saw that with Martin Maldonado early in the season, that he kept coming up in big spots and turned the post-game debate into why didn't Grifol pinch hit for him? And that was before like Corey Lee was really establishing himself as like a hot bat early on. But that's the way this offense works. The offense, because there are no heroes up top, like, Tommy Pham might get a double, but then nobody follows it up, or, they just string together, a bloop hit and a grounder that goes through. But it just, there's nobody scoring 2 runs in a hurry. And by the time Baldwin comes to the plate, like, it's just tacking on. It's like anything Baldwin adds is gravy. It's Baldwin or Nicky Lopez had a rough point early on this season too, because the game kept finding him. Just you get frustrated with guys not delivering, but it's also exacerbated by the fact that it always comes down to like these sequences over 5 batters and 2 outs where, if only they could come up with that 2-out hit, but what happened to the 1-out hits or the 0-out hits that put runs on the board? That's what's so tough about watching this offense and makes everything so it's just laborious and it's painstaking. And I admire about watching players on other teams, like even going back to like the Paul Konerko years and talking about like, how he took everything so hard and, he really, you could wear his frustration. And I could appreciate the effort he put into hitting, but I also wish the White Sox best player was somebody who made the game look easy, like the way Luis Robert Jr. can occasionally make the game look very simple with like a flick of the wrist, or turning on the burners and turning a single into a double, or scoring from first on a weak double, like that kind of stuff that makes the game look effortless. And basically, you're seeing that. The Paul Konerko hangdog, slump shoulders across an entire team, except without a fraction of Konerko's hitting ability as well. So you get all of the thankless toil and the lack of reward, or every day's a struggle, without the production. And why watch? Like, if the White Sox weren't wearing black, white, and gray already, I feel like their uniforms would be black, white, and gray. Like, the color would just be drained from them because of how hard baseball is.
Brooks Baldwin had a single with the 105 mile per hour exit velocity in his first major league at bat. The other 9 at bats for the series, 0 for 9, 5 strikeouts. So let's hope that when the White Sox travel to Texas, Brooks has a little bit more success. If he does not, is he still with the White Sox when they come home against Seattle? It'll be interesting to see how much runway Brooks Baldwin gets, but I guess the impression is that Baldwin's going to get some run here. Just hope that he finds some success in the next series, at least in the next 4 games against the Texas Rangers. We're going to preview that series as the White Sox go back to Texas. Garrett Crocket just pitched there for the All-Star game. He'll be making his next start, maybe, against the Texas Rangers on Tuesday. We'll talk about that, the latest trade gossip, and also see what's happening around Major League Baseball after a quick word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by Game Time, an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices of the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and views from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. The Chicago White Sox are not home again until next weekend, but also keep in mind they have 2 popular series coming up in August with the New York Yankees and Chicago Cubs visiting. Those will be very popular games to attend, and the third-party pricing outlets outside of Game Time are already crazy for the Cubs series. Check out Game Time for the best deals for those series, and also use Game Time for other sporting events like the Chicago Sky, which those tickets have become very hard to come by these days. And football season is just around the corner with Chicago Bears preseason games now available on Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our promo code Sox Machine for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use our promo code Sox Machine for $20 off. Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month slows. Full terms at mintmobile.com.
Welcome back to the Sox Machine podcast. Before we preview the next series as the Chicago White Sox continue their road trip, now heading to Arlington, Texas to face the defending American League champion and defending World Series champion Texas Rangers, there's some trade gossip to discuss, as Bob Nightingale of USA Today in his Sunday column added these notes, two notes in particular. So one I think is far-fetched, one we have heard through the grapevine is actually true and could be the first trade domino that falls for the White Sox. Let's start with the far-fetched one, because I saw a lot of other outlets write this as a serious story. I find it really hard to believe, but Nightingale is suggesting, Jim, that the Los Angeles Dodgers are looking to a mega blockbuster, wanting Garrett Crocket, Luis Robert Jr., and Michael Kopech in the same trade. I find that to be far-fetched because acquiring three major leaguers and asking for a team's two best major leaguers in the same trade, we never see those trades come to fruition.
Yeah, it seemed like the conversation, I could picture it being, we're checking into the White Sox, Crochet, Robert, Kopech, maybe all three. I could see maybe casually tossing that out there as a maybe tongue-in-cheek comment or some combination of, like, I could see Kopech and Crochet going, or Kopech and Robert, because Kopech, I think, is maybe worth lottery tickets, or somebody lower minors, interesting arm, somebody maybe on the outside of a 40-man roster picture, but somebody who might have more value to the White Sox, but not somebody who's going to soak up a top 100 prospect and make it harder for a team to strike a unique deal, separate deal for Robert or Crochet. So that's why, like, Kopech itself didn't bother me. I just think the idea of trading Crochet and Robert to the same team that does not, say, the Orioles, who probably have the talent, or I would say definitely have the talent, just might have the talent to part with it and still maintain their 2024 and short-term ambitions. They're maybe the only team I can see pulling it off. Otherwise, everybody else probably too much of a haircut, I think, to actually make that deal happen. So, I didn't give that a whole lot of credence.
If you went to baseball trade values, which I know people debate just how realistic that tool is, but if you use that tool at baseball trade values, it would be like 7-8 minor leaguers the Dodgers would have to trade to the White Sox to make that deal happen. That's not happening.
Yeah, and they also, like, I was thinking in terms of the prospects that they had to deal before the season, and when we're talking about Dylan Cease trade, I think a lot of it's circulated around the Dylan Cease trade rumors that Pages is up and doing okay, but right now the Dodgers need him for outfield depth. Like Cartaya has tailed off a little bit and is not the prospect. So, like, their farm system's a little bit of a weak spot to where they have to make a key trade or two because of injuries and such. They've had to call up everybody of value, so they're not the usual depth that they are. And when it comes to, like, acquiring Dodgers catchers, I think Keibert Ruiz with the Nationals hadn't delivered on his promise, to where, like, maybe a little skeptical of who the Dodgers deal, and feeling like if they can't turn that talent into somebody they can use to offset a salary like a Shohei Ohtani salary, or whoever, Mookie Betts, whoever else they're deciding on paying, then that automatically makes me a little bit skeptical in terms of what the White Sox can do.
Now, the trade rumor that we have heard through the grapevine, that Bob's gotten good information. According to Bob Nightingale of USA Today, the St. Louis Cardinals are interested in Erick Fedde. And from what we are hearing, that seems to be true, that the Cardinals' interest in Erick Fedde is real. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, again, the White Sox won that series in St. Louis, so I can't believe the Cardinals are 52-47, and they're making up some ground on the Milwaukee Brewers in the National League Central. The Cardinals are just 5 games back of the Brewers, and they got a 1.5 game padding right now in the wild card, so they would be in the postseason right now. The rotation, again, is already pretty old. They already acquired old friend Lance Lynn. They got Sonny Gray, Kyle Gibson as well. So why not add in Erick Fedde, who would seem to be a spring chicken in their starting rotation? But this could be the first trade domino. We've been waiting, Jim, for a while now. When is Erick Fedde going to be traded? As we record this, we're 9 days, as people are listening to this, 8 days away from the trade deadline. And I feel like Erick Fedde is going to be the first trade domino for the White Sox. He's supposed to start on Monday against the Texas Rangers. And I wonder, before that start is made at like 5 o'clock Central Time, Erick Fedde is scratched. And when we get that news that he's scratched, then we have a good understanding of where he could be going.
Yeah, the Cardinals make sense in terms of need. And also, I'm thinking back to, again, the Dylan Cease conversation. I think that's pretty handy when talking about Crochet and Fedde, because Cease is in that ballpark, more value, I think. Crochet, I think, will be... it's fascinating when you hear what teams are willing or not willing to give up through Nightingale and such, and not sure if that's just trying to make a leverage ploy about, we don't know like how durable he is, or whether they look at the metrics and everything that everybody else is looking at and saying he has 2 pitches that are elite and we definitely want him on our team, and we just we're doing anything we can to lower the price. But Fedde, I think, fits neatly, I think, in that group. The Cardinals, with Jordan Walker not finding footing on that team, despite being, top 20 with top 30 consensus prospect.
Yeah, he's up there.
Yeah, and he's still just 22 years old. He's somebody who has some potential. Liberatore has kind of the same boat, some top 100 prospect heat, and hasn't been able to take advantage of his opportunities. That would have been disappointing for Cease. It would be disappointing for Crochet, but for Fedde, with just a year of control after the season and somebody who doesn't get by on dominance, more of a kitchen sink approach than somebody who overpowers. That feels more in the realm of possible and fair, and worthwhile for the White Sox to use all the opportunities they have to try to buy low on legitimately appreciated prospects who haven't been able to stick with St. Louis. And so that's why I think there could be something to this if the White Sox have enough belief in the bats. Dylan Carlson's another one who hasn't been able to hang on. Given numerous opportunities. And I wouldn't want to see Carlson lead a package, but as a secondary player, tertiary player, the White Sox definitely have the need for outfielders who can cover center. So, again, another guy who could use the opportunities the White Sox have.
Yeah, because the top position player, minor leaguers for St. Louis in their top 30, Victor Scott II, according to MLB.com, is the 3rd best prospect for the Cardinals. Now, this list has not been updated, so this is rankings prior to the MLB draft, so it's been a while, and I'm sure with the refresh, these names are going to move all over the place for the Cardinals. But Victor Scott II, he played 21 games in the majors this year for the Cardinals, 274 OPS.
Fits right in.
And his AAA stats are not much better. His AAA stats in Memphis is 562 in 65 games. So Victor Scott's really struggling. I doubt he'll be the 3rd overall prospect for the Cardinals after an update. Thomas Segis, he's a infielder, utility guy for the Cardinals system in 84 games in AAA. His OPS is just 709. And Chase Davis, recent draftee by the Cardinals, 22 years old, but he's an A-ball, because his OPS is 735 right now, and he just has 8 home runs. I'm pretty disappointed in Chase because in last year's draft or recent draft, he was supposed to be a power-hitting outfielder from Arizona Wildcats, and he reminded me a lot of Carlos Gonzalez, Cargo, from the Colorado Rocky days. So according to MLB.com, again, this list really needs to be refreshed. It needs to be updated after the MLB draft. But if you just go to MLB.com and you scout the Cardinals' top prospects, White Sox position players, and the top 3 guys in the Cardinals system are really struggling this year.
Yeah, looking at Baseball America, which did update its rankings, it has Scott now 5th behind Tekoa Roby, who's now third. So the top three are pitchers: Tink Hence, Quinn Matthews, Tekoa Roby. Fourth is, and I had to look this up on how to pronounce it because I had no clue when looking. Thomas Sujazi is how to pronounce.
Sujazi,
yes,
okay.
How to pronounce his name. I could see that. I could see Sagis. I could see a whole bunch of options. So that's why I did not want to try to pronounce.
Yeah, let me screw up first. I got you.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Buy me time. Yeah, and then, Scott's there, and then more pitchers. Chase Davis is eighth. So, yeah, it's unimpressive from... I do like Jimmy Crooks as a catcher. That's a great, 1930s...
Yeah, great catcher name.
Yeah, good catcher. Yeah, for any time. 1880s, 1930s, 1960s. Yeah, great name. Timeless. So that's why I think they could go to that, non-prospect list or former prospect list, faded prospect, whatever you want to call it, and create kind of a compelling package, maybe a high risk package, but also what I think might be a reasonable risk package. I would just need to actually probably thoroughly update my priors just to make sure, is there still anything here? Have there been massive injuries? Scour the beat writers, the blogs, the prospect outlets just to see Jordan Walker. What happened? Because I know last time I checked in on him, I think during the cease and then a little bit after watching him not stick, there were still people in on him and still thinking the Cardinals have had some weird stuff, front office, Ali Marmol, some leadership issues, Mozeliak thin ice to where might just be a product of the environment. But given another half season of just rough results and not seeing those players as a solutions, it is worth making sure that you're not doing what the White Sox do with the 2017 top prospect list, just changing the year, but ultimately not getting the results because you're buying low and the price is low for a reason.
Yeah. So again, I think Erick Fedde, would you agree, Jim? Is he the first trade domino for the White Sox?
Yeah, unless it's I would say domino that has some resonance. Yes. I could see Paul DeYoung or Nicky Lopez being dealt because the price is the price. I can see.
Well, yeah. And Atlanta's got a need, right? If you didn't hear, Ozzie Albies has a fractured wrist. He's out 8 weeks.
So I could just see if Getz has in mind, if we get an A-ball arm for Lopez, let's do the deal. Let's not, shop that around. If there's somebody that our scouts have liked before, and I could see it coming together real quick. I could also see those players taking the longest because you don't rush out to jump the market for Nicky Lopez or Paul DeYoung. So that's why, I probably Fedde is first, but I could see if teams really just want a stopgap, and I was wrong. My instinct or I put Martin Maldonado out there as maybe a team will trade for him, and they released him. So I think you can easily overestimate the value of anybody that the White Sox could let go without missing. So that's why, Fedde probably feels like he has enough demand, combination of demand and quality, and not many players in the market like him to where his value could come together a lot faster. I think Crochet, Roberts, their value is a lot more complicated because of the unknown with their durability. Fedde, he's been durable. He just hasn't been good until now. So I think, and there are reasons why he's good now and wasn't good then. So I think the picture and teams evaluating him and agreeing to a fair value, I think will be a lot easier with him.
Well, let's preview the next series for the Chicago White Sox. Again, any big trade news like Erick Fedde gets dealt, Garrett Crochet, Luis Robert, we'll have our emergency podcast. We're geared for this. So again, the trade deadline is just 8 days away. It's set to expire at 5 p.m. Eastern time on July 30th. Now, for the White Sox, they're heading to Arlington, Texas for 4 games against the defending World Series champions, the Texas Rangers. So the Rangers really need this series. The Rangers are currently 47-52. They're still 5 games below 500. Now, some good news. Seattle continues to collapse. So the Rangers are just 5 games back of the Mariners, but the Houston Astros have caught the Seattle Mariners. So a month ago, the Astros were 10 games back of Seattle, and in 1 month, the Astros have made up 10 games against Seattle. So Seattle and Houston are tied for first place of the American League West. So the Rangers, they have a chance to not only get closer to 500, But if the Astros stumble against the Athletics, and if the Mariners still struggle against the Angels, the Rangers could also make up some ground in the American League West. They really need this series. The pitching probables for this series: Erick Fedde will take the ball on Monday, maybe, against Michael Lorenzen. That game is at 7:05. It's 7:05 p.m. Central Time starts for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Tuesday night, it is Garrett Crocket making the start for the White Sox against John Gray. Wednesday, it's Chris Flexen against Nathan Eovaldi. And Thursday's getaway day. The Rangers don't have a starter announced yet. This is a 1:35 p.m. Central Time start, but Jonathan Cannon will get the ball for the White Sox. So again, Fedde, Crocket, Flexen, Cannon for the White Sox against the Rangers. And Jim, outside of let's see how Fedde and Crocket do, because if Fedde and Crocket do what Fedde and Crocket have been doing, this is going to be a tight ball game through the first 5-6 innings. Maybe it'll be curious to see just how deep Garrett Crocket goes in his start and how many pitches the White Sox give him. Alas, I'm expecting Fedde Crocket to still be good, and this may be the last rehearsal start before they get dealt. But I'm really looking at this series from a Texas Rangers perspective, because like I mentioned, they really need this series. It's hard, it's almost impossible to sweep a team, especially in a 4-game series. But we're talking about the White Sox here. And they've lost 7 straight games. And if the Rangers stub their toe and they split this series, I wonder if they have to pivot and they have to do some light selling before the deadline to unload some expiring contracts for them. So I feel like for Chris Young, the general manager of the Texas Rangers, this is a big series to decide what Texas does before the deadline.
Yeah, the White Sox are a little bit of a litmus test here for just how disappointing can the opponent be? And like the Cardinals, the White Sox losing that series, which is I think the only road series victory the White Sox have this year. Every time they win one game on the road, I think the Cardinal series comes up as will they have another road series win? And the answer is invariably no. But when it comes to the Rangers, like they are in that same boat. And when you look at the offensive performances, pretty disappointing across the board from name brand talent. Part of it you have to adjust for just the league offense being down overall, but like, Evan Carter not clicking, Wyatt Langford, rookie, understandable why he's just kind of ordinary right now, but he's not offsetting the disappointments from like Semien and Seager missing some time early and Heim not being looking like an all-star this year. So they have, I'm looking forward to the series as a baseball fan, like watching the Rangers up close, because I've been thinking they can get on a run at some point and they just don't. So one, can they do it against the White Sox? And two, if they don't, just like, why is it not working? Because I think like the Royals game against Thorpe, I could understand why the Royals want bats, because they didn't look impressive against a guy who isn't impressive, and the Royals have some heavy home road splits. And I think, the White Sox saw the home Royals offense, but the away Royals offense is worse. And I think the Thorpe start gave him a taste of that. So I could understand watching him in person, watching him, on TV for, over the course of a 3-game series, what parts aren't quite working or what positions aren't working. So I think the Rangers here are kind of in a similar boat. Like when you look at who they can move, you want to keep everybody. Like all the name brand talent's good. So I'm really curious. It's one thing if Crocket beats them or Fedde beats them, depending on how deep they go into the game, maybe both. But like I could see 3 out of 4 being a triumph for the Rangers. But yeah, a split based on where they are now. It's go time before the deadline. The White Sox having lost 7 in a row. Curious if the White Sox will still baby Garrett Crocket. That might be one. They just have to outlast Crocket for 5 innings and the bullpen comes in and messes it up.
Or like 50 pitches. If they only give Crocket 50 pitches, Crocket will try to go 5 innings on 50 pitches. But yeah, to your point, there may be that type of restriction.
So we're like, if Crocket is still on a strict limit in order to preserve his trade value, then it could be Fedde or bust for the White Sox to win a game. Looking forward to see if the Rangers respond to the not challenge of facing the White Sox.
Again, we'll be recapping these games on SoxMachine.com, and of course we'll we'll have a new podcast for you Thursday night to recap the 4-game series and any news that does happen for the White Sox if they do make any type of trades. Moving to around Major League Baseball. Some big news items. One, today was Hall of Fame induction weekend, so congratulations to Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, and Joe Mauer. Manager Jim Leyland was also inducted to the Hall of Fame. I think this is a very worthy class. Say what you want about Coors Field, but Todd Helton was a terrific hitter throughout his entire career. Joe Mauer, even though he was super annoying to watch from a White Sox perspective, was one of the best catchers in Major League Baseball during his career. And Adrian Beltre, let's have an honest conversation about this, Jim. Adrian Beltre, top 5 third baseman ever? Is he one of the best third basemen in the history of Major League Baseball?
Yeah, thinking off the top of my head, Mike Schmidt is probably clear number 1, depending on how you feel about A-Rod. But yeah, it's a case of like true third baseman, all-time third baseman.
It's 93. It's 93.5 WAR.
Yeah.
For Adrian Beltre.
Yeah, it's a little bit like compiling. I mean, it's. I'll put it this way: like it's really hard for a third baseman to collect 3,000 hits. Like usually the wear and tear of the position cuts career short to where you have to evaluate them on a slightly lower bar, like Scott Rowland. You're not hitting the benchmarks, but obviously being a really good player for a really long time at a demanding position, being great on both sides of the ball. Like that's the. That's usually the standard that third basemen are held against when it comes to durability. So the fact that Beltre could get 30, like not even 3,000 hits, 3,166 hits, being productive in his age 39 season was okay. Like it wasn't like he retired, like just being, a husk of himself. Like he was worth, only played 119 games, so it was more injury, but like worth 1.5 WAR over those 119 games and a slightly above average player over the course of a full season. Like he was good to the end. So it's impressive to see like that Harold Baines steadiness and longevity, especially like in his 30s with the position while playing Gold Glove defense, and just absorbing everything that the game threw at him, and then also doing it with a lot of charisma.
Yes.
A lot of character. So if you add that in terms of entertainment value, how fans who had no connection to the Rangers or, even his other side, I'd say a Seattle stop that's when you learn about park factors a little bit, for Beltre going from the Dodgers to the Mariners and being disappointing when actually he was okay. It's just, Safeco at that time was a really difficult place to hit and disappointing for home run totals. I think fans just enjoyed watching him, enjoyed his reactions, enjoyed his brand of whimsy and surliness, like unique mix of being grumpy, but also being a little bit of an imp, sneaky sense of humor, like a lot of fun. So yeah, thumbs up.
Joe Mauer in 212 games against the Chicago White Sox hit .298 with a .384 on base percentage and slugged .438 against the White Sox. At US Cellular Field / Garrett T. Rate Field, Joe Mauer hit .297 with a .403 on base percentage. He had more walks and strikeouts and slugged .436. That's what I'm going to remember. It's just how difficult it was for the White Sox to get Joe Mauer out. But at least to the White Sox credit, in 8 games against Todd Helton went 5 for 29 against the White Sox. That's a .172 batting average, and he didn't have an extra base hit. So at least the White Sox shut down that Hall of Famer in his career. But yeah, again, congratulations to Todd Helton, Adrian Beltre, and Joe Mauer.
One thing about Beltre, going back to the leaderboard, 3rd all time in wins above replacement on Baseball Reference behind Schmidt and Eddie Matthews. If you count like prime, if you have more of a prime based argument for a career, then maybe Wade Boggs beats him. You have Ron Santo, George Brett also in there for like 7-year peaks. So depending on what your flavor of like best third baseman of all time is, but I think in terms of like longevity and defense, power production, I think he looks like he's top 3.
Yeah. So what do you go? Schmidt number 1, Beltre 2 or 3. Who's your third one?
Matthews.
I mean, George Brett had one hell of a career as well.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Wade Boggs. I mean, again, Adrian Beltre, phenomenal and very worthy of getting to the Hall of Fame. The other around MLB note that's important, The city of St. Petersburg Thursday successfully voted for a new $6.5 billion redevelopment around the existing Tropicana Field site in what is known as the historic gas plant district. Out of this $6.5 billion that City Hall approved in St. Petersburg, $1.3 billion will be going to the Tampa Bay Rays to build a new stadium. It sounds like the next step, according to the Tampa Bay Times, is one more state as far as Florida Tourism Board, another venue of revenue that the Rays could get to help complete as far as this historic gas plant district project is what's being called. But the Tampa Bay Rays now have a path to getting a new stadium, and it's going to be part of this $6.5 billion development in a very close vote. Again, 5-3 vote this past Thursday in St. Petersburg. And you know, Jim, Jerry Reinsdorf will be taking that information after the election season, if he's still interested, going down to Springfield and sharing, look what St. Petersburg, Florida is able to do. Why can't we do this in Chicago? You just know he's going to use this as an example.
Yeah, because I mean, it's kind of history repeating a little bit, but the thing I don't get about the Rays stadium is that the whole argument against staying in St. Petersburg, staying in the Dome, or like the primary argument, I mean, obviously the Dome is a miserable place to watch a ball game, terrible to watch on TV, a mistake from the 1980s. But besides that, the argument against the Rays existing in St. Petersburg was that it's on St. Petersburg. It's on it's very difficult to get to. You have to go over a causeway for the bulk of the population. It's not somewhere you can just take an easy drive or an easy lift to, or a train, public transportation. You have to drive, and you have to drive on very inconvenient roads, or roads that can get blocked up. And so it's a hassle. So why bother? So when they talked about new Rays Stadium and they talked about Tampa, like, that always made sense to me. Like, yeah, if they're going to try again for the Rays, it has to be in a different spot to test whether that theory that it's too hard to get from Tampa to St. Pete, and that's where the population is the one worth trying. So, like, to go back to the same site and build it up more, that strikes me as making the same mistake twice. You may be making the mistake in a better way, just because there's more around it. There's more for non-baseball fans and more for year-round people than just a ballpark and parking lots, but not that much different when it comes to getting where the bulk of the population base is. I think they're opening up one more roadway that's supposed to help alleviate the pressure, but still, you're asking a lot of people to go to a place they haven't liked going to for an ownership group that they tolerate because they're successful, but obviously they don't retain players, and fan favorites are kind of transient. So they haven't generated a whole lot of goodwill when things dip south. So yeah, I'm skeptical of this. And if Reinsdorf tries to use it, like, I can understand why he would try to, but I also can see it as lawmakers, Pritzker, whoever it is, being the person responding to him, say, like, I'm not convinced this is a great idea for us. Like, we could just be following St. Petersburg off a cliff again.
Part of the $6.5 billion project, a new hotel that will have 400 rooms, so a huge hotel. The new stadium capacity is planned for just 30,000, and it will include 4,400 new housing units, which over 1,200 of those will be considered affordable housing units. And there will also be a new concert venue next to the stadium that will seat 4,000 to 6,000 people for concerts. And of course, the parking situation, supposedly there'll be 14,000 new parking spaces in this district. So that's how St. Petersburg is doing it. They're investing $6.5 billion to redevelop an existing neighborhood right now in St. Pete, and the Rays will be getting $1.3 billion of that to build a new stadium. So
that's the $1.3 billion, though. I guess that would be the figure, I guess, the lawmakers in Illinois would come back with.
Well, that's
because what's Reinsdorf reportedly was going to, I'll kick in $200 million.
Well, I mean, the Rays are getting $1.3 billion from the city. So I think Reinsdorf would be like, listen, if St. Petersburg, Florida could give the Rays $1.3 billion.
Okay. It's going through. Okay, they said like the Rays are paying towards
should
that.
be giving me $1.3 billion so I can move to the South Loop. That's what I could see happening, but no one in Illinois in the politician level can have that conversation. Seriously, nothing can be voted upon until after the election season in November. But there you go, Jerry Reinsdorf, thanks to St. Petersburg, Florida. He's got an example of what's going to be coming down the road for another Major League Baseball team and the investment that's being made by St. Pete. So that's what I thought was interesting around Major League Baseball, what caught my attention. Jim, how about you? What is catching your attention around Major League Baseball?
The Hall of Fame weekend. I was a little bit skeptical on Joe Mauer's case. Not that I didn't think he was worthy, just more like I didn't think he was a slam dunk, maybe first balloter. Like I thought it might take more time to convince people because I wasn't necessarily convinced. But reading his plaque and talking about like how unique he was as a hitter for a catcher and a good defensive catcher at that, not just a catcher he tolerates behind the plate, pre-concussions. It sold me. Like his plaque sold me because I think it told a pretty good story about just why he's there. Also, it was cool to see Jim Leyland, like just very good manager. Yeah, obviously great manager, Hall of Famer. But having seen him, with the Tigers and appreciating how he was modern enough. Like sometimes he made, the kind of the classic 1980s manager mistakes in a modern era when it comes to lineup construction or, bullpen rigidity or whatnot. But he was always modern enough in terms of relating to younger players, giving them a chance. Never, he looked old and crusty. He always looked older than he was because of the cigarette habits. But I was always surprised how young he was, relatively speaking, by, thinking when I had his baseball cards in the 80s and early 90s, and man, like, how old is this guy? And it's even more jarring now because I think decreasing number of smokers make those 30-year-olds in previous decades look even older. But it was cool to see him get his due because I think he was a very gifted manager just for being able to age in place and not, try to fool people into thinking who was young or anything like that, but just kind of like Terry Francona has a similar gift. Just being himself, but also his approach never gets old. And I think that's maybe the consensus with every manager who isn't Tony La Russa, because I think La Russa is unique in terms of being combative with players, but still getting the best out of them. Most of those managers burn out pretty quickly, but I think if you're talking about players, managers, and not being pushovers, I think Leyland and Francona are the best embodiments of that. I thought it was interesting too. I guess I'll mention this. Bruce Levine talking about Terry Francona being a possibility for a White Sox manager after the year. Like,
is he healthy enough? That's
why, perhaps a year off will do him good, but also just, it reminds me a little bit of the Tony La Russa thing all over again. Because La Russa had a hip replaced and thinking I could do this. And then different health problems kick in because you're at an advanced age and those are more likely to happen. And so he wasn't able to, to go back to the top of the show in news events, he wasn't able to fulfill his term and had to step down. So I think, that would be my question with Francona, because this job will take a lot of energy and I think it will take a lot out of you. We don't know about Grifol because he had no hair to start the job. So we don't know exactly how much this job aged him. That was a smart strategy in his point to go in bald because you can't see the wear and tear on him. But that would be my concern, is that, as much as I think about Francona and would love to see it, especially, relative to who he'd be replacing, I think that, I just want to know if he's up for it, because don't want something horrible to happen to him because his body just is incapable of handling the stress of a major league season, because I think a lot of the guy.
Me too. And I think he's a great manager. It would be a great hire by the White Sox, but I'm with you. Is Terry healthy enough?
Yeah. Like Bochy had similar things with heart issues and he was able to get back into it and won a World Series with the Rangers. So I wouldn't count that out. It would just, I'd want to know more and hope that, Francona's, he's thought this through and talked it over with doctors and such, just to make sure that because he doesn't have like La Russa's relevancy to the modern game. Like obviously he's proven he can handle, everything He knows the rules, etc.
He shocked the American League Central in 2022.
Yeah, so I think he can. I guess the one counterpoint would be like, look at the Guardians now. Like I thought they might miss him, and Stephen Vogt, they have not missed a stride yet with a manager who's never managed before. So that's one reason why I might pump the brakes a little bit and say, can Terry Francona help this team all that much? Was he a product of just a really cooperative front office and a really good partnership, and that Stephen Vogt is benefiting from the same thing? Not quite sure, but that's not me saying the White Sox shouldn't do it. It's just more of emptying my brain and all the thoughts and angles. But thought it was fascinating and curious to see if it goes anywhere, because there is that White Sox connection. There is that Jerry Reinsdorf could come in and supersede decision-making and say like, hey, I know Francona. We go way back. He's my guy. And Chris Getz be like, oh no, not Terry Francona. Please don't. Okay, fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that being like, the sell that actually Getz might agree to.
Well, we'll see. First, they got to get rid of Pedro Grifol. And they should probably do that sooner than later, but we'll see when that actually happens.
I'm for team later now, after looking at the Baseball Reference leaderboard.
Jim wants complete, utter destruction.
315 games.
That's Jim.
Kind of like Carlton Fisk. Like once he got to the record, just bring out the motorcycle, send him out.
But there's still 4 games left in the season. Now you can go. The point is, Pedro, for you to get on the motorcycle and drive out of the stadium.
It'd be like a Vespa, like a used Vespa.
Oh, but that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can subscribe to the Sox Machine Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. You could also listen to the show through our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sox Machine, and follow us on social media. We have a lot of pictures and all the things that we did in Kansas City this past weekend. You can follow us on all the platforms at Sox Machine. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. And of course, follow James Fegan at JRFegan. Speaking of James, if you want to gain full access of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox, and this is a great time to sign up, especially with the trade deadline coming up, sign up at patreon.com/Sox Machine, as James will start sharing some of the gossip and rumors and whispers that he's hearing reporting from the White Sox clubhouse on SoxMachine.com. That's going to be Patreon exclusive content. So again, monthly plans start at just $5. You do save on an annual subscription. It goes a long way in helping support what we do at Sox Machine. Again, we watch the White Sox, so you don't have to. So help us out. Sign up at patreon.com/Sox Machine. The Sox Machine Podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com, your home for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.